Today we are visiting the beautiful gardens at Villandry in the Loire Valley in France. If you're a gardener, this should be your #1 stop for a trip here. Villandry is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. It is considered the best garden in the Loire Valley and possibly in all of France, and its title is well deserved. There is free parking nearby, and you walk in through the lovely little village, which is a great place to stop and grab a lunch. There is a nice gift shop at the beginning of the tour, and I did grab seeds and an apron, and the seeds are blooming on my backyard right now. There are carp in the moat, which are hungry and will eat anything you drop, so that was kind of interesting. And then we move through the tour of this gorgeous garden with a handout that will give you the layout of the gardens and a map well marked out to take you through the areas of this beautiful space. A nice thing to note for us gardeners is that this garden is open year-round, and you can stay as late as you like, so you don't need to watch the clock while you're here. The only thing to note is that if you stay after 7 p.m., you need to exit through a back gate, but how nice to not watch the clock and you can just wander this gorgeous space. This was absolutely worth a stop and a wander. This is so amazing, and if you get a chance, get the aerial views of this. I didn't have a drone, but if you can look at this from above, you can see the amazing patchwork design of this from the air is absolutely stunning to fly over. So we walked through. I love all these arches and trellised rose benches. I'm a rose gardener. I have gardened for most of my life, so this was a big major stop for me to see. Some of the history here: the beautiful chateau was finished in 1536. It was the project of the finance minister of Francois Premier, one Jean the Breton, who fell in love with Italian Renaissance gardening while serving as ambassador to Italy. The project he bought began in 1532 when he bought the property for £35,000 at the time. I'm not sure what that would be now, but I'm sure it is a lot of money. He removed a much older 11th or 12th century castle that had sat on the site. He kept the tower and then built the current chateau and the amazing Renaissance gardens, of which these are a recreation. After his death, his widow actually received Francois Premier at Villandry on January 17th in 1543. The current garden is the work of 3 generations of recreating the original Renaissance design. They are cared for by the current family, who has owned it since 1906, and 10 full-time gardeners. We didn't actually go into the chateau, but there is a tour you can take. There are, of course, period rooms decorated, and there's music. There is a small theater. You can watch a short film on the gardens. And there is a spiral staircase up the medieval tower to view the full 360-degree panorama of the gardens and the surrounding village, which would have been lovely to see. We didn't go in, but if you've been, let me know in the comments what you saw and what it was like to go up in that. I'd love to hear about it. The directional map will take you through the 4 different areas. This is a 10-acre space. The garden includes a water garden, a topiary garden, an upper sun garden, an herb garden in the style of the monastic gardens of the Renaissance and Middle Ages. The lower gardens are vegetable and herb gardens. They are basically the recreation of a Renaissance kitchen garden on a grand scale. They have 40 varieties of vegetables planted every year, and the herb garden is recreated in the monastic style of medicinal gardens of the time. The monks were fond of the geometric patterns you will see here, which have been taken to incredible perfection. It is definitely worth grabbing the chart to take through the garden, which will kind of show you the route you can take to see everything at its best. Then it is nice to note that all of the plants have descriptions in English as well, which is a nice touch just for us English-speaking, maybe non-French-speaking gardeners. It is lovely to see in English what you're looking at. That was a nice touch that I thought was great for them to include. The garden has 85,000 plants, which half of them come from the family's own greenhouses. They are replanted twice a year by the 10 full-time gardeners. And I thought, what a dream job to work here. Can you imagine this being your job as a gardener? But also keep in mind they garden organically here, which is lovely, but it means no pesticides, which is terrific, but also lots of hoeing and weeding. And I do so much of that already at home. I think I might pass on the job, but oh my goodness, this would be a heavenly place to work as a gardener, and you won't find a weed anywhere as you walk through these amazing grounds. Definitely take the time to go up and above. Kind of outside of that lower area, there is a whole upper area. There's a great water feature that you can sit near and enjoy. There are alleys to walk through. There's the Topiary Garden to see. This was a hill I thought as a kid, wouldn't you just love to roll down that hill? And of course, because I love history, I was interested to learn some of the history of the area and things that have happened here having to do with English and French history. I did find it especially interesting that this place was only officially renamed Villandry in 1639. Prior to that time, the village had been called Colombière, and the inhabitants of Villandry to this day are still called Colombiennes, and a nod sort of to their village's old name, which I find very sweet. And a bit of history that I also loved learning about this, since I'm my biggest thing that I'm into in history really is English history. And according to the historians at Villandry, the first mention of the town of Colombière in historical records was when the Peace of Colombière was signed in the tower here on July 4th, of 1189 by one very ill Henry II of England between him and his son Richard, who was allied with France's King Philip Augustus. Henry was so weak that he had to be carried by litter back to the nearby fortress of Chinon, where he weakened further and actually died 2 days later on July 6th. Right after this, of course, his son Richard stepped into his role as the legendary King of England, Richard the Lionheart. We really loved our stroll around these gardens, and I especially loved the sun garden, which is a more natural sort of perennial space, much more like an English cottage garden on a large scale, and a lot more like what I garden at home. So this was fun to stroll through and see the perennial plants, and they have a quick little kids area up here, which I thought was a really nice touch. Kind of a neat little sort of area you can sit. I don't know if you can picnic up there, but it looked like a great space for kids to run around. We were so glad we stopped at this gorgeous chateau on our visit, and I hope you enjoy the rest of this video. I will leave off chattering and let you just wander through the rest of this amazing space with us as we came through the upper side and back down through the lower vegetable and herb gardens in all of their geometric glory. Thanks for coming along, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the tour.